A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver. The Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fellow. I'll Silver. Away!
Carlos Alvarado was a notorious outlaw leader whose boldness and daring was the talk of the territory west of the Pecos. A black patch over one eye gave him a sinister appearance, and the sight of his dark, scarred face grinning behind his ever-ready gun sent chills up the spine of anyone who saw him. Whenever he struck, it was done in a brazen and unexpected manner. When the bank owner in Pecos entered his private office one day, he was startled to see a figure with his back turned staring out the back window.
What? Say, no one told me I had a visitor waiting in here in my office, sir.
But I did not tell him, senor. I came back here unobserved.
Yeah, this is unusual, to say the least. Turn around and state your business and
Very
then...
well, senor.
What? That gun. You must be Carlos Alvarado.
That is right.
What do you want?
I come to a bank, of course, to get money, senor. Now we shall go outside of the safe. His gun will be at your back, and my men by now are out there waiting.
You won't get away with this. The sheriff will get after you and your men as soon as...
Oh, see. But unfortunately, one of my men a while ago convinced the sheriff that Carlos Alvarado and his men were holding up the stage a few miles from here. Too bad you did not observe the sheriff leave town with a posse. Now get to the safe, senor, and pronto.
A few days after the bank holdup, two men rode the trail toward Pecos. The Lone Ranger and his Indian companion Tonto were riding in answer to a request for help from the sheriff in Pecos, who had sent a message through the padre.
We'll pitch camp in the hills, Tonto. Then you can go to town and let the sheriff know we've arrived.
Will you not say why sheriff want your help, Kimasabi?
The message said that Carlos Alvarado was operating in this territory.
Oh, Alvarado, plenty bad outlaw. Him not afraid of law.
That's right. He laughs at the law. So far, seems to have reason to. He manages to outsmart everyone who tries to capture him and his gang. Man is bold and reckless. Because of that, I hope to turn the tables on him.
Well, we get near Pecos. We look for campsite now?
Yes. After we're settled, we'll get busy with plans to capture Alvarado. Let's go to that clump of trees off to the left. It looks promising. Come on, Silver.
Come on, stop.
When he and his gang were not roaming the countryside, Carlos made his headquarters at a small farmhouse several miles back in the foothills. The men assumed the role of ranch hands, and the place was given an air of respectability by the presence of an old woman known as Senora Rosa. Because of her seemingly meek and gentle appearance, Rosa could go to town freely without causing suspicion, and thus get supplies and information. Senora Rosa drove into the farmyard in a buckboard and pulled the horses to a stop.
Oh, there.
Well, Rosa, see you got back all right.
See, I always get back all right, Shorty. Now you help me to get down.
Sure. Come on.
I bring news for the Senor Carlos. Where is he?
He's inside eating.
Always he is eating and boasting. Bring the supplies inside. I shall go to talk to him.
Sure thing.
So, the so sweet Senora Rosa has returned, no?
Pig! Must you eat up the supplies as fast as I get them from town? It is near supper time, and still you stuff yourself.
Hold your tongue, Rosa. We're fortunate Carlos Alvarado puts up with the likes of you. Caramba, that I should have such a wizened relative to take care of, huh?
Do much for the little I get in pay, Carlos. Do not forget the risk is great.
Yeah?
Taking orders from such a one as you has never been to my liking. The great Carlos Alvarado. Bah!
The gentle senora becomes an old crone when she enters this place, no? It's such a change that people in town should see, perhaps, eh?
Do not be the fool. The ride is tiring. I shall sit down. You are not so safe as you think, amigo.
Huh? What do you mean? If you were thinking that someday you might be...
Once again, you are the fool. I am no more safe from the law than you are. I say you are not so safe because in town I have learned something.
So? What is it?
I have learned that the sheriff has sent for an hombre who is well known for catching outlaws such as you and the others, Carlos.
Of course. Always they are sending for help to try to catch the great Carlos Alvarado, no? Oh, but I am one smart hombre, Rosa. You need not worry, eh?
Listen, pig-headed one. The one they have now sent for is also much smart.
Bah.
Perhaps you will stop thinking of Carlos Alvarado and think of what you will do if you find the Lone Ranger on your trail, amigo.
So, it's the Lone Ranger for whom they have sent, huh?
I knew that would make you to do some thinking.
Such a woman you are, Rosa. It's easy to see you do not know Carlos as well as you think.
You are not frightened to know of this?
Carlos, frightened, bah? I am most delighted, Rosa. Often I have wished for to know where to find this masked hombre, the Lone Ranger.
But I do not understand.
It's simple. I have heard of his great horse, the big white stallion. Such a horse as no one has ever seen before. I have heard of guns that sparkle with much silver and pearl. See, I am most anxious for to own such horse and guns. I must tell the others pronto. Shorty, Jim, Joe, all of you, come here, pronto. Such news is good, Rosa, very good.
You are loco, Carlos.
But no, senora. You wait and see.
What's the matter, Carlos?
Get some news from town. Tell us what it's all about.
Yeah, let's
Be
hear it.
quiet and I shall tell you, amigos. Rosa has found out that the sheriff sent for the masked man known as the Lone Ranger.
Sent for the Lone Ranger? What great day, Carlos. He's dynamite.
We better clear out right now.
Oh, do not be so stupid, senors. I have heard much of this masked hombre. But then, he have heard much of Carlos Alvarado, perhaps, eh? I'm most glad that he is the god.
I don't savvy, Carlos. Why should you be glad?
Because he is one big fool. Carlos speaks of wanting the white stallion and the guns of the Lone Ranger.
The less I see of his guns, the better.
Yeah, me too.
You got something on your mind, Carlos. What is it? You can't be serious.
Oh, but I'm most serious, Shorty. Now sit down, all of you, and I shall tell you my plans. Now, you will not have to fear these masked hombre. I promise you that.
Meantime, the Lone Ranger and Tonto had made camp, and Tonto had notified the sheriff of their arrival. After dark, the sheriff met the masked man and Tonto at their camp to discuss the situation.
Does anyone know that you sent for me, Sheriff?
No, I didn't tell a soul, not even my deputy. That is, outside of dropping sort of a hint to a little old woman today about it. But I didn't mention the name of the Lone Ranger to her even.
Who is the old woman you speak of, Sheriff?
A nice little old Spanish woman. Has a place of her own several miles out. Folks call her Senora Rosa.
I see. How did you happen to mention it to her?
Well, you see, every time she comes to town, she stops by, sort of friendly-like, and chats with me. Today, she said she was feeling nervous about the things she'd heard about the Alvarado gang and asked if they were captured yet. I told her no, but that if a certain masked hombre I'd sent for got here, I was sure they would be caught.
Oh, what did she say to that?
She didn't get what I meant at all. She said I shouldn't joke with her, that all masked hombres were outlaws as far as she knew. I told her if you got here today like I expected, she might change her mind before long. It was easy to see she didn't know what I was talking about, the poor old critter.
Haven't you been able to get any line on that gang at all?
No. They cover their trail so's nobody can pick it up, and plenty of them's tried, too.
I know.
It's not easy to start after gang without trail.
Yes, that's right, Tonto. But I'm hoping Alvarado will tip his hand in some way or another while we're here.
Yep, I sure hope so. And if I hear anything, I'll get word to you pronto.
Good enough. Meantime, Tonto and I'll start out in the morning and see if we can find some trace of them. I don't intend to give up until Carlos Alvarado is caught.
The following morning, the Lone Ranger and Tonto were having breakfast when the sheriff hurriedly rode to their camp and dismounted.
There's Sheriff. Him in hurry.
Yes, he must have news. Morning, Sheriff.
Hey, good morning. I just got a line on that Alvarado gang, so I came right out to tell you.
Tell us what's happened.
Well, I was sitting in my office this morning when one of the hands from the Spanish woman's place, you know, the one I told you about, Senora Rosa.
Yes, I remember.
Well, like I was saying, one of her farm hands come busting in all excited.
Sheriff, I'm sure glad you're here.
Well, what's happened, mister?
Well, I'm out of Senora Rosa's place. I just came from there.
Yep, I'm listening.
Well, when I went to the house this morning, I found her tied hand and foot. She'd been robbed during the night.
Robbed, you say? Is she all right? I mean, did the thief hurt that old woman?
Yes, she's just upset, that's all. Sent me in to tell you about it. Especially to tell you it was done by the Alvarado gang.
The Alvarado gang, eh? Just like that mean coyote to pick on a nice old lady like her? Well, you'd better get back out there in case she needs you. Tell her I won't lose any time getting after that gang.
Sure, I'll tell her. I wish you luck, Sheriff. If you do catch up with that gang, it'll sure surprise a lot of people. Adios.
So the Alvarado gang robbed an old woman like that.
She's such a gentle little thing. I knew you'd want the news pronto, and I came myself so nobody else would know you was around.
Maybe this is the break we've been hoping for.
What we do, Kimasabi?
I suggest that the sheriff go back to town and get a posse together. Shouldn't take long.
Nope, that's right. It's only a half mile at a time. What are you and Tonto going to do?
We'll go out to Senora Rosa's place and pick up their trail. When you get there, you can follow us.
Yeah.
While the trail is still hot, we'll have a good chance of catching Alvarado and his gang.
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger story. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. Now, to continue our story. After getting directions from the sheriff, the Lone Ranger and Tonto set out for Senora Rosa's farm, while the sheriff went to town to get a posse. Meantime, Blackie had returned to the farm and was talking to Rosa.
Well, the sheriff fell for the story, Rosa. Then after I went out, I watched a minute. He got his horse and headed out of town at a fast clip.
So, but that means he has gone to tell the masked man who must have arrived as Carlos hoped.
Well, that's what I figured.
They'll be coming here to pick up the trail. You had better get out of sight. Go tell Carlos how the plan is working out.
All right.
Carlos says the Lone Ranger and his companion always work alone. They will be too impatient to wait for a posse to be formed, Carlos thinks. Go now and join the others before it is too late.
A short time later, Tonto and the Lone Ranger stopped in front of the farmhouse.
Me wait, Kimasabi.
All right, Tonto. Oh, don't be frightened, Senora Rosa. The sheriff said he spoke of me to you yesterday.
Oh, see, the masked man. I still do not quite understand.
I hope to help him catch the outlaws who robbed you during the night. Are you certain it was Carlos Alvarado and his men?
But see, senor, the patch over the eye I have heard about. By that I knew him. And the men, they called him Carlos.
I see. My Indian friend and I are going to try to pick up their trail now. The sheriff and a posse will be along shortly. It's too bad you had to go through such an ordeal, Senora.
See, it was terrible, senor, terrible. I do hope you catch them. I was tied hand and foot for hours.
They were pretty rough, seems to me. If I can be sure of finding their trail...
See, they went out to the trail and turned around toward the foothills, I'm sure, senor.
Oh, thanks very much. I'll go now. Adios.
Adios, senor.
Let's ride out to the trail, Tonto. Steady, big fella, easy. On, Silver.
You're not scout.
When they reached the point where the main trail passed the farm, the Lone Ranger pulled rein.
Oh, Silver. Oh, Scout.
Oh, fella. Why we not hunt for tracks near farmhouse, Kimasabi?
We didn't have to, Tonto. I'm convinced there's something wrong. I'm sure that old woman lied about being robbed.
Oh, what make you think that?
Several things. But the main thing is she told me the outlaws rode out here to the trail and turned toward the foothills. But if she were inside, tied hand and foot, she couldn't know that. Moreover, I noticed there were no ranch hands on the place.
Oh, look there. You see fresh tracks of many horses, and them go toward foothills.
Yes, I know. But for some reason, she wants us to follow those tracks. Well, I've been thinking, Tonto. She's the only one the sheriff told about sending for us.
That's right.
Then she reports the next morning that the Alvarado gang robbed her at her farm.
And you not think it true?
I'm beginning to put two and two together. It could be that she's spying for Alvarado. It's hard to believe, but
what we do?
We'll follow the tracks we see here, Tonto. But we'll have to be careful we don't ride into a trap. Come on, Silver.
Get 'em up, Scout.
Carlos and his men had ridden several miles into the foothills. They followed the trail through a narrow gorge, the banks of which were covered with boulders and brush. After they had gone the length of the gorge, Carlos led the men into an arroyo, where they dismounted and waited for Blackie to come to report. Finally, Blackie arrived.
Whoa there. Whoa.
Well, Blackie, what have you found out?
The sheriff fell for the story. Rode out of town like he was going to tell someone before getting the posse together.
Ah, that is what I thought he would do. Go talk it over with the masked hombre.
Now what do we do? They might all come together.
Perhaps, but I do not think so. We shall leave the horses here in this arroyo. On foot, we shall circle back on each side of the gorge and hide among the boulders and bushes. Whoever comes, we'll follow the hoof marks through the gorge. It will be perfect for an ambush.
A short time later, the Lone Ranger and Tonto approached the entrance to the gorge.
There are several places in these foothills that would be perfect for an ambush, Tonto.
Ah, that's right. Look like we come to narrow gorge ahead.
Yes. What's the trouble, Silver? You better stop a moment, Tonto. Oh, Silver.
Oh, fella. Oh. You think Silver give warning?
Could be. He's acting strangely.
The great horse Silver stood with head held high and ears pointed forward. The breeze was blowing toward them from the gorge, and the stallion's sensitive nostrils had caught the scent of many men. He sensed danger to his master, and had used the only way he knew to give warning. Once more he whinnied.
Something's wrong up ahead, Tonto. Silver is warning us. If anyone is in that gorge, they haven't had a chance to see us yet.
And what we do?
We'll follow an idea I have, Tonto. We'll turn off here. All right, let's get going. Come on, Silver.
Come up, stout.
For some time, Carlos and his men waited, crouched behind the boulders on the hillsides along the narrow gorge. Finally, they heard many hoofs approaching the entrance to the gorge from the direction of town.
Hey, Carlos. Sounds like the sheriff and the posse coming.
That means the masked hombre and the Indian waited for them, and they all came together.
It's not what I've hoped for. But we will soon put them on the run. Let them get into the gorge, then they will all be in our crossfire. If things get too hot for us, we can go up over the hill and reach our horses in the arroyo beyond. Be ready with your guns, everybody.
As the posse entered the gorge, Carlos and the group with him watched intently. Carlos spoke in a low voice.
Soon they will all be in our trap. The ones on the other side will wait for a signal of 3 quick shots. Then we let them have it from both sides. Look at the other end of the gorge. The masked hombre and the Indian.
Carlos, the posse's been warned. We're outnumbered.
Shoot them.
We better clear out while we got the chance.
Yeah, the masked man spoiled our plans.
Keep firing at them while we retreat up over the top of the hill. The others will see what we're doing and they will follow. We can head for the horses in the arroyo. Give it to them. Now, start getting out of here pronto. Come on.
All right.
At the other end of the gorge, the Lone Ranger and Tonto saw the outlaws heading back over the hilltops. They turned on a signal from the masked man and rode to the shelter of some trees, overlooking the arroyo where the outlaws had left their horses.
Oh, Silver. Oh, he's got. They'll be heading back here to get their horses. They'll be surprised to find out we've driven them away.
That's right.
We can hold them at bay. The sheriff and posse will ride here when they hear the shooting.
Oh, here come, outlaw.
Hey, look, Carlos. Horses are gone.
Masked hombre, he is starting.
What are we going to do now?
The horses must be nearby. We'll find them.
Give them some warning shots, Tonto.
Hey, someone's behind those trees. They can pick us off like flies.
Throw a leg that way. We're sure our way past them.
No, look, here comes the sheriff with the men. Come on.
Posse and the sheriff are coming, Tonto.
Posse, we'll extract here in this arroyo.
Drop your guns and reach, all of you.
You got to get the rights. Give up and pick up boots.
We give up. We're giving up.
As the sheriff and the posse moved in, the outlaws, realizing they were really on the spot, dropped their guns. That is, all except Carlos, who suddenly ran up the bank of the arroyo and headed off to the side. The Lone Ranger, without waiting to mount Silver, started after the outlaw leader on foot.
That's Carlos trying to get away. I'm going after him.
Carlos zigzagged through the trees, stopping only long enough to fire at the masked figure coming behind him. The Lone Ranger withheld his own fire, using a tree as a shield each time he saw Carlos raise his gun. Again, Carlos ran on, hoping to locate the horses. And behind him, gradually closing in, was the masked man. But still, Carlos didn't feel fear. He hoped to lead the Lone Ranger far enough away so that he might settle the score with him alone. Because the Lone Ranger didn't fire at him, Carlos began to think the man behind him was carrying an empty gun. Once more, he turned and fired. It was then the Lone Ranger really went into action.
His gun is empty. I'll get to him before he can reload.
Sprinting forward, the Lone Ranger moved swiftly up on Carlos. Suddenly, the outlaw stopped and turned to face his adversary.
So, the others have not followed. They think you can settle this alone, huh?
That suits me.
Holstering his gun, the masked man stood for a moment, sizing up the sinister figure before him. Then Carlos spoke.
Now I shall beat you until you beg for mercy, senor.
I'm looking forward to this.
The two men seemed well matched. Carlos still wore a sneering grin as he threw punch after punch at the man he had planned to trap.
No one has ever licked Carlos.
There's always the first time.
For a few moments, the fight seemed to be an equal one. Then the look on Carlos's face changed. He realized that he had more than met his match, as the Lone Ranger's powerful and well-placed blows began to tell on him. He was breathing heavily, and beads of perspiration stood out on his forehead. Suddenly, he ducked the blow and reached inside his shirt. A second later, a knife glimmered in the sunlight.
I fix you. Now you will die.
We'll see about that.
Grabbing the outlaw by the arm, the Lone Ranger twisted suddenly to the side, and the big muscular body of Carlos flipped through the air and landed flat on the back.
Oh, my arm. You broke it.
Get to your feet.
No, senor. No more. No more.
Good man alive. I was watching from back there. You sure handled this hombre like nobody's business.
That sure was some fighting, mister.
Oh, Silver. Me bring horses, Kemosabe.
Thanks, Toto. Sheriff, you'll find the outlaw's horses in the Box Canyon just up the trail.
Yep.
I suggest you stop on the way back and pick up that woman, Senora Rosa.
So, Rosa has tell you about us, huh? She's double-crossed me.
She didn't tell us anything, but I guessed a lot. Your admission just now proves I was right.
You mean the gentle little Spanish woman is in with him?
Gentle, she's a mean old crone, that Rosa.
Alvarado, you're the lowest type of man I can think of. Only a coward like you would hide behind the skirts of an old woman to protect himself. Senora Rosa, because of her relationship to you, has to suffer. All right, come on, Toto, we get back to camp. The sheriff has plenty of help. Easy, steady, big fellow. Adios, Sheriff.
Adios.
One, Silver.
Hey, Sheriff.
Yeah?
Who is that masked hombre anyway?
Him? Well, he's the one hombre in this country that can handle so-called tough outlaws like Carlos. You see, he's the Lone Ranger.
Adios, Silver. Bye.
This is a feature of the Lone Ranger Incorporated, created and produced by George W. Trendle, directed by Charles D. Livingston, and edited by Fran Stryker. The part of the Lone Ranger is played by Brace Beamer.
You've been listening to the OTR Gold Network. Find more classic radio at otrgold.com.